Hey guys, we spent one day learning how to predict babies in Punnett squares and another day learning the vocabulary words that we use to talk about the babies that we're making when we do those Punnett squares. Today, I want to put both those things together and work some more problems. This time, the ones that we're doing today will be about human traits, but I'm going to use some other examples to show you what I mean here. Two of the words that we looked at yesterday were genotype and phenotype. Now, those two words exist because there are two realities in the real world. There's the reality down inside your cells, things that you can't see because they're so small, little strands of DNA and little segments in that DNA called genes. Those genes control your traits like eye color and hair color, etc. But we can't see those genes on the inside of your cells. And so we use little letters to stand for those. And those little letter combinations are called the genotype. It is literally the type of genes that you've got in your DNA. We're showing what we would find if we went and tested your DNA. But you can't see those. So the letters stand for them. Now, on the outside of your body, though, there's a physical expression, a look, an outward appearance that those genes cause in the organism itself. So this flamingo down in its DNA may have had a dominant gene for pink and a recessive gene for being, white. And the dominant gene causes a pigment in the feathers that reacts with the environment and causes the flamingo to look pink on the outside. So that is its phenotype, its outward look that you can see on the outside of the animal. I remember the word pheno because pheno and photo both start with a PH, and a photo is what you look like. So phenotype is what you look like. Now, if we look at maybe some flowers, phenotype is pretty easy. There's two different colors that we can see in the flowers in the garden. Either they're purple or they could turn out white. Now, while these two purple ones look the same on the outside of their body, if we went down into their cells and looked at their genes, they could be different. One of them might have inherited two dominant big P purple genes, and the other one might have inherited one big dominant purple gene and one recessive white gene. But it's still going to look purple on the outside because that one dominant gene overpowers the recessive white gene, and it ends up looking purple. The only way that it can be white is if it inherited no big purple genes. It got two recessive genes, and it will be little p, little p. Now, there were some other words that we used to talk about those letter combinations, homozygous and heterozygous. Now, the homo and hetero prefix here means exactly what it does when you use it in other contexts. A homosexual person is a boy that likes a boy or a girl that likes a girl. It's someone who likes someone of the same sex because homo means same. Hetero means different, so it would be like a boy who liked a girl or a girl who liked a boy. They like someone of the different sex. So same thing applies here. Homozygous means it's the same type of letters. This one's homozygous because it's two big P's, and that would be homozygous dominant. This one's the same because it's two little p's, so that would be homozygous recessive. This one is different, one big and one small, and so you'd call it heterozygous. Now, if we look at a problem like this, we can see the parents were two purple plants. Both of them were heterozygous parents. In other words, they had a big B and they had a little b, both the mom and the dad there. And then they made 4 children. The ones in the boxes here are the offspring or the children, and they got 4 different children. And in this case, we can see the look of the flowers on the inside, which is pretty convenient. So what are the genotypes for this problem? Usually when they're asking you what the genotypes are, they're talking about the genotypes of the 4 kids here, but they may ask you for the parents. But talking just about the 4 kids here, the genotypes are big B, big B, big B, little b, and little b, little b. That's it. It's the letter combinations they're asking you for when they ask for genotypes. What are the phenotypes? That's what they look like. So out of the kids here, you've got 3 purples and 1 white. That's the phenotypes. 3 purple ones, 1 white one. Now, if you're looking at a normal problem, you won't be able to see those pictures. You'll just see something like this. But you can still tell what the genotypes are really easily. Big B, big B, big B, little b, little b, little b. You can even use the words to refer to that. This is homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, and these two are heterozygous. But if you think about it, you can probably figure out the phenotype in this problem too, what they look like. Because I think they're telling us that big B, the dominant gene, is red, and the recessive gene, little b, is blue. So maybe this is another type of flower where the dominant version is red and the recessive version is blue. So we can probably figure out phenotype there too, even though they didn't tell us that. Now, the other thing that they'll ask you for in these problems is to figure out what the genotype and phenotype ratio is. And sometimes this freaks people out. It's really not hard at all. I'm not that great at math, and I can figure it out. So you can too. When you're talking about ratios, you're talking about fractions. So if somebody told you in order to kill the weeds in your yard, you could mix up 3 parts vinegar and 7 parts water in a gallon and use that as weed killer. What that means is 3 parts of that whole gallon was vinegar and 7 parts of it were water. It's a ratio. It's a fraction. And we can write it out like this, 3 to 7. Now, in genetic problems, we write it out the same way. If you had 6 things here, 6 stars, 2 of them were blue and 4 of them were green, you could write that ratio as 2 to 4. And that's the format that we use to write things in genetic problems. Now, you can think of it as 2 to 4 if you want to, like spell it out, or you can think of it as a fraction, 2 blues and 4 greens, 2 to 4. Now, I know that some of you who are math whizzes are going to call me out and say, wait, why would you leave it as 2 to 4? Because you can reduce that fraction, right? Well, that's true. You can say 2 to 4 will reduce to 1 to 2. But I think in these genetic problems, because we're actually talking about babies, just leave it like it is. Don't reduce it, because all 4 of the babies, or in this case 6 here, will be there for you to look at. So I don't like reducing fractions in these problems. Now, in a problem like this, if it asks you for the genotype and phenotype ratios, you can figure those out really easily. Let's say that the big B here is a blue flower and the little b here is a white flower. The genotype ratio is asking you for the letter combinations. And if you look at the babies here, there are 3 different letter combinations. You got the big B big B's, the big B little b's, and the little b little b's. 3 different types. So your genotype ratio is going to have 3 different numbers. Start up here in the upper left-hand corner. Big B, there is 1 of those. So I'm going to type 1. And then there are 2 big B little b's. So the next number is 2. And then there is 1 little b, 1 of those guys. It's as easy as that. That's genotype ratio. Phenotype ratio, you'd have to think about what they looked like. And if we said big B was blue and little b was white, anybody who got a big B is going to end up looking blue. No matter whether they got 2 of them or 1 of them, they're going to be blue. So blue, blue, blue. There's 3 blue kids and there's 1 white kid. So the phenotype ratio is going to be 3 blues, 1 white. Simple as that. Ask yourself what they look like. Let's look at another problem here. We've got, obviously in this problem, big G is the dominant color and it's green pods. And little g is the recessive color, it's yellow pods. And you've crossed a heterozygous green mom over here with a homozygous yellow dad up here. And in the kids here, for genotype ratio, that's the letter combinations, you got 2 big G, little g's, 2 of them. And then for the other type, the little g, little g's, you've got 2 of them. So 2 to 2. 2 heterozygous, 2 homozygous recessive letter combinations. For phenotype, though, you got to ask yourself what they look like. And these 2, because they got 2 big G's, because they got a big G each, they'll both be green. So there's 2 green ones. And since neither one of these down here got a big G, they're going to be yellow. So there's 2 yellow ones, 2 to 2. So in this case, both the genotype and the phenotype ratio is going to be 2 to 2. That won't always be the case, though. Now, the next question here is asking us how many of the babies here are homozygous dominant. Well, let's see. Homozygous means same and dominant means big letters. So it would be 2 big letters. Well, it's a trick question, isn't it? None of those are homozygous dominant. These are homozygous recessive. Those are heterozygous. So there's no big G's in the problem. It's a trick question. For this last one here, keep in mind, eye, skin, and hair color does not work this way. It's not this simple. But let's figure out genotype and phenotype ratio. So for this one, the genotype ratio of the kids here, well, they're all the same, aren't they? I can't really compare them because they're all big B, little b's, all 4 of them. So what would I put here? Well, they're all one type. So I'm just going to type a 1 because it's not a ratio. It's not a fraction. They're all the same. So it's just 1. They're all the same. And for the phenotype ratio too, didn't they all turn out with brown eyes? That's what they look like, right? So again, the ratio is just 1. They're all the same. There is no ratio in this problem, in other words. So that's how you figure out that problem. I thought I'd show you that one because it's a weird one. All right, so that's how to work those things out. Now, on the assignment that you're working on for me, I want you to work these out on paper. Now, the quiz will be on a Google form, so you'll be clicking multiple choice answers. But please, 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 work these things out on a sheet of paper so you can see the kids in here and think about it. If you don't, you're going to make mistakes, almost guaranteed. So write these things out, draw yourself a little square, put the dad's 2 genes up top and the mom's 2 genes beside the 2 boxes coming down this way. And then when you make the babies, you'll just bring this F in and that F down, and you'll make the babies in the box here. And then you can figure out genotype and phenotype ratios. But do work them out on that piece of paper. It's going to help you so much. Okay, I'll let you get started. We'll talk to you later.